All right, and welcome back to Mvskoke Creek Nation Election 2021. Meet the candidate. Tonight's candidate is Nelson Harjo Sr. That's senior, not junior. And he is a candidate for the Okmulgee District Seat B. And to just start off, Mr. Harjo, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running in this race.
Okay. Well, my name is Nelson Harjo, and I'm senior. My son, Junior, is one of my two sons, and I have another son named Julian. I married Georgia Harjo from Okmulgee. I'm originally from Mvskoke, Oklahoma, and I moved up to Okmulgee after we got married and been here 30 plus years. And so we have a grandson who is presently attending Northeastern University. I've been around the tribe for many years now. There's just been a lot of things I've done throughout the tribe. I think I had one of my first management jobs for the tribe, and that was been several years ago, and that was with housing. And there's just a number of things that I noticed as I was growing up. And I was in my early 20s when I first started managing for the tribe. And so as I went through time and got appointed as I was an appointed official for the chairman. I was the chairman over the election board. And I just done a lot of different things there and had opportunities to meet with the council, sit there and listen to a lot of the meetings and just sit there and watch the processes and just, really just sit back and listen to the people as they engaged with the tribe. And unfortunately, I noticed also, there began to kind of become a separation between the tribal organization itself and the people, and not trying to bash too hard, but just simply stating that, these are some of the things I noticed. And so when I decided to run again this time, those are a lot of the things that I begin to think about, is because, when you have a tribe, the council, I feel, is somewhat the voice of the people as long as they're talking to the people. But there again, we still need to be able to hear the actual true voice of the people. And, I know, when we do that, I know there are just so many types of answers that can be given and so many questions they can ask, and there's so much that's going on. But even at that, we still need to hear what they're having to say, because sometimes even our own thoughts and when we look at how our people are, there may be sometimes we may get what we're thinking, our perspective may be wrong. And so I think we need to hear from them a little bit more. So, because to me, when we do that, then we're more able to meet the needs that they're asking for. We're more able to do things for them that will actually help whatever plight or whatever issue they may be having, we may be able to address all those things. I look at our tribe, and there again, we've done a lot of different things. And excuse me, my nose is running. I just got 3 peppers. But there's a lot of things the tribe has done that is really good. And one of the biggest things they've done over the years is the casinos. But, I think there's more that we can do than just the casinos. There's other types of businesses that are out there. There's other things that we can do, even through governmental contracting. There's so much money set aside for Native tribes to try to bid for, and, it's all competitive. And if we're able to get into that particular part of contracting with the government, well, then the reality is there's more money to be made doing governmental contracting. And by that, well, once the tribe starts to receive a lot more money than even what the casinos are doing, well, then that allows us to begin to create industry here locally, even through 8A companies and everything, because 8A companies, they don't have to be super big. They can start out real small, but then they can grow into something that can be very large. And what that does is that allows our people who are maybe unskilled workers, who are skilled workers, those with education, those without education, those who have a lot of education. And eventually what we're doing is we're taking our tribe And we're removing ourselves from being a social service type tribe to what the federal government has taught us to be. And we're becoming more of a tribe who is actually working. Our people are making their own livings, they're taking care of each other. And now the social service programs we have, they will actually be utilized for what they really need to be utilized for. Now, trust me, I'm not trying to bang on anybody that's using those services, because those services are there for a particular reason. But the more that we grow into business, the more that we create more industry for our people, well, then the less that we become a social service tribe, and we become a tribe who's able to grow through business, and we become a little bit more business oriented, not to take away from who we are as a people, not to take away from our traditions or our culture. But what that does is that begins to move us more toward being more self-sufficient. And right now, I think the way we're going, because we're so used to that federal template that they've always used with us, or that template, now we've got so stuck in that it's I don't know how you would say it, and we've got really complacent in that area that I want to remove us from that. I want to move us out of that. So that way, finally, now all of a sudden, we've got people who are working, who are making 15, 20 bucks an hour here. And, the upper echelons, they may make a lot more than that. But at least now, our people are making a living, and they don't have to decide between going to a movie one night or not eating the next.
I gotcha.
That's why I'm running, is because I want to see us to get into a better place.
Okay. And I want to remind the audience, if you want to pop your questions into the chat, go for it. We've actually got pretty long list of questions here already, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in here. The first one, it looks like that is for you, is from T.Y. Pearl. And Eleanor Whitebird had asked a question earlier before we actually started streaming, but I think she mistook you for Junior. And she says that she stands corrected, so I see that. So, and Eleanor, if you want to pop a question in, have at it. I'm going to go ahead and go down to T.Y. Pearl's questions, though. The first one is, do you believe the city of Tulsa and Tulsa County respect the jurisdictional authority of the Mvskoke Creek Nation on the same as they respect each other's specifically?
I don't really think so. I think sometimes the city itself, and I have to be very frank about this, is because at one time there was a gentleman, I was sitting in a meeting, and there was a former council member, and I'm not going to mention his name because I don't feel like I need to, and he had mentioned something about Okmulgee has a lot of respect for our tribe, where we sit at right there presently within the city of Okmulgee. Mm-hmm. And he said, because we just handed them, what was it? I can't remember what the amount of money was. It may have been I think it was around about $50,000. And I wasn't really trying to be too smart with him, but I wanted him to understand what I was saying. I said, if you handed me $50,000, I would probably respect you very well too. Mm-hmm. I said, but how long does that respect really last? And I said, as long as they got the money they were going after. I said, because now when we look at the city of Okmulgee, unfortunately, I know that there's some issues that are there, and I think everybody's heard about them. And I think Tulsa will probably work with us up to a point, and I think there's going to be a particular mutual type of respect, but I don't think it's going to be the respect that you would see them with other people that may be creating big industry in that particular area. I think it may be a little bit different, and it may simply be because they sit within the reservation. But I think that's something that if we begin to make moves towards industry and helping not only to bring more industry in, but even creating it ourselves, I think we can probably get rid of that particular way of looking at us and begin to help create a actual respect for us as a tribe that has the ability to be just as competitive as anybody else that they may meet along the way.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. In regards being included in, or let me start that again. In regards being included and other areas' tribes as partners in task forces and public press briefings regarding COVID updates, but also any other areas like economic impact derived by the areas. Oh, I think that's just a continuation of the earlier question. Sorry, I kind of botched that. I think you kind of covered it though. Ty Pearl, if you want to have some specific question on that, a follow up, go ahead and pop it in there. I kind of flubbed that because there was two statements in there, but I'm going to go on to the next question. Do you believe that projects that require a large investment of tribal funding should go to a vote of the people for final approval? If so, what dollar amount should the threshold to trigger that be?
That's really a good question. And I think what can happen is, we have to kind of be careful sometimes because, what's going to happen is if we're actually going to begin to do projects, it's going to cost a lot of money. But then we also have to remember it costs a lot of money to put out a vote to of the people, if we're going to do ballots and everything else. And so that would be an extra cost. I think what really needs to happen, and this is just from my perspective, and, I think what has to happen is if we're going to decide to do something, if the tribe is looking at something, the administration and the council together are looking at a particular project, I think once they've sat down and looked at the planning on that particular project, then I think what they need to do is come back to the people through social media, through Mvskoke Media, whatever avenue they can actually take and begin to educate our people as to what this particular project is. And then I think later on, maybe that the tribe itself, can put on kind of a, what do they call those things, where they have that big meeting, a town hall type meeting. Mm-hmm. And that could actually even be done there at the Dome. And so people can begin to ask questions. But there again, I think the tribe needs to begin to educate our people as to what they're doing and how that money is going to be spent and how many of our people are actually going to be working there. And, and what levels of skills our people may need to work here. I think if we do it that route, I think we'll be able to cover our bases a little bit better. But as far as a vote for the people, there again, that would really be something I think that would have to really be discussed, because sometimes if there's projects out there that we're doing, and if these areas are pretty competitive, and if we ain't careful, sometimes we can bog down things, regardless of what price tag it may have on it. And we may have to move very quickly to do certain things. But I think our biggest, I think our biggest downfall is that we have not been informing the members as much as they need to be informed. They need to understand what is fixed to come up, and then we need to see that that the tribe itself is actually going through a really nice planning stage, and that they even got everything set on their side of the table. Because once you start going up with things, and all of a sudden you got a building just sitting there and nothing's happening, well then that's almost wasted dollars. And and we have to be careful about all those things. And I think that's one of the that may be some of the reasons why that particular question come up. I can't really say it is, but I can say this much, that if we're going to really present something to the people, then we have to have our side in order first, and so that way they'll fully understand. And I don't know, that's just my particular thoughts to that particular question.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. Let's see here. Have you read the most recent quarterly report?
I'll be honest with you, no, I haven't. And I'll give you a reason why. And I have actually struggled to meet a lot of the forums and to really get out there here lately, because over this last month and a half or so, I've actually been in and out of the hospital twice. I've had 6 surgeries. And so in order to try to even to do the forums, I was real fortunate that some of them were on Zoom, and the ones that were in person, they were kind of difficult for me to attend, but I made them anyway. And so unfortunately, I'll be honest, no, I haven't read the quarterly reports.
Okay.
So I have to say that.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. Are you familiar with our conservation district? Do you think the Imhoff rider that restricted our authority over environmental issues compromises our ability to administer the district?
I think so. I think so. I think we need to have our own ability to, and we're talking about environmental, EPA. I think all those areas, I think we need to have our own ability to administrate those things. But when you look at, what's taken place with the McGirt case and how Inhofe done all those midnight riders in order to stop a lot of things, and that was really just to try to preserve the state of Oklahoma and to preserve everything about them as far as, keeping their stuff intact. And that's the biggest thing that I think we need to really concentrate on, is getting to the point to where we can actually get those things back in our playing field. I think we have the ability to. I think we really can. But that particular question, I think it has really restricted us in a lot of ways. And because when you look at even the building that's sitting up there going towards Glenpool, when we look at that, we're having to wait on the state, and they're going to have to approve everything for that via EPA, when we should be able to do all those things. And so, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, I agree.
I'm going to go on to the next question. Do you support the Mvskoke Creek Nation being a funding partner in the Jinx Dam or building a toll bridge in South Tulsa?
Well, when we look at the Jinx Dam, I think this is something we have to think about. How would that really help us there at River Spirit? And how would that help us at River Walk? And I think if we're going to support a dam there at Jinx, then we need to look at what type of opportunity that we may have to get boats down there, or little ferry rides, or whatever we want to call them, that can transport people from River Spirit across the waters to River Walk. So River Walk is really going to have to be upgraded. There's going to have to be things out there that aren't there right now. I think there's going to have to be different types of business, so that way it can create a what would you call that? A nighttime like atmosphere. And so that, if there's families over there at River Spirit, maybe they want to come across there. And only if we're going to really do something of that magnitude, then I would support that dam. But if we're just going to pay for a dam and we're not going to really cash in on what it could do for us by raising the water levels there in that area, well, then there wouldn't be no reason to even support that whatsoever. Now, what was the other part of the question?
The toll bridge in South Tulsa.
If we had good percentages as far as what we would receive from that, because if we're going to do a toll, you say a toll bridge?
Yes, it says toll bridge in South Tulsa.
If we're going to do a toll bridge, well then we have to see, because realistically, if we're going to invest money into something, well then we have to see how quick the return on that money we're going to be able to get. And we have to look at all the percentages that everybody's going to be getting off of that. And we have to ensure our percentage would be at a level that we'd be able to get our return at a pretty good rate. Because if not, well, then we're going to be sitting there and there's this toll bridge happening. And if our percentages aren't good, well, then, it may be 20, 30 years, 40 years before we even get a return on our investment. But at the same time, how is that really going to benefit us? And so we have to look at all those particular things first before we even sit down and even begin to negotiate any kind of terms as far as, what we're going to be getting in return. And so until we really know what the benefits are, well, then at this particular point in time, without knowing those things, I don't know that I would support it. But if the benefits really outweigh all that's there, even with the dam itself too, and we're going to get things put in place because it's going to help support the river walk, it's going to help support river spirit and all these things, well then absolutely, because then all of a sudden we'll be getting a good return on our money.
Okay. I got a couple of questions here that are thumbs up or thumbs down questions, and so I'm just going to ask them kind of like how they are. M&BE, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'd have to say thumbs down.
Okay. One Fire, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I think thumbs down.
Okay. Let me go on to the next question here. Now this question, Eleanor, I don't know if I understand exactly what you're asking, but I'm going to read it as you wrote it. Thoughts on the citizens being paid a dividend from our initial investment to jumpstart the tribal complex, sort of like paying dividends to shareholders, not per cap. It sounds like she's asking what your thoughts are on the tribe, maybe paying dividends back on some of these investments.
I think, excuse me, that's really a good question. But I think when we look at, we're going to have to really take a look at, what the returns are on our investments are, first of all. Excuse me. And if the returns aren't really that big, well, then what you're going to be looking at is dividend payments. They may just be $50. Mm-hmm. They may be $25. And so it's not going to be something that's going to be absolutely life-changing. It may buy somebody some gas for the most part, but then I think we need to probably look at those things when we begin to create industry that's actually going to the returns on that industry is going to be bigger than what the casinos are giving. Because if we can do things of that nature, well then all of a sudden with that combined money that's coming back into the tribe, well then at that point, who knows, we may be able to give $250, maybe even $500, and that's going to be more beneficial than if we were just given 20, maybe $50. And so when we see this, we also got to take into consideration how many people are enrolling every day, how many people are enrolling in one whole month into the tribe. And so we're going to have to ensure any type of monies and investments that we have is going to exceed a certain amount that we have to set aside that can actually feed those particular dividend payments. Because eventually you're going to want those payments set in a particular fund to where it's growing on its own, and predominantly we're just using maybe just the interest off to pay out these dividend payments. And so that's going to be a substantial amount of money that's actually going to have to be made, because even right now, we got 90-something thousand plus people. That's a lot of money going out. And, everything's possible, but I think right now we're at a place to where we could either go backwards or we could go forward. And so I'm hoping that we step forward and take several steps forward, in which sometimes that's real hard to do, especially just in one term. Mm-hmm. But at least I'd like to see us starting to make that initiative to start stepping forward, because that right there will give us an idea of where we're going to be probably in the next 8 to 10 years, or maybe even 15 to 20, and which is good, because once we get our first thing in place to where we're getting more money in on top of the casinos, well then that right there will help us understand where we can be probably within the next 20 years. And then maybe it's then that a particular payment might be able to come out. But okay, the tribe will have to be very aggressive.
All right. Let's see here. I'm trying to find where we were. We just asked about the dividend. All right. Here's the next question. Given the flooding issues we recently had, do you have any concerns about it increasing flooding hazards?
Several years ago, I was at a particular camp, a martial arts camp, and man, this was way back when I was younger. And I remember meeting up with the guys that were around the Illinois area and different places. And I can remember, the flooding issues they had then. And I sat back and was paying attention to that. And I was watching it and how that happened to them, I think maybe about 2 or 3 years in a row. And I often wondered, when is our time going to come? And then all of a sudden, the hurricanes are hitting and there's some great flood issues taking place down south. But eventually, that's what I was talking to my wife about. I said, we're probably going to have to deal with those particular issues too. And so I think, this is where we as a tribe, I do worry about those things because, one of the things that we have control of, we have control of this particular election. And because the people are voting on that, we have control of what we decide to do from day to day. Now, whether everybody agrees on it or everybody doesn't, there's certain things that we're going to do, and we're controlling certain things there. But the one thing we don't have control over is Mother Nature. So we're not really sure of. Now, am I speaking right about flooding? Is this what we're talking about, right?
Yes, I believe that's the topic.
And so, we can't really say because, last year, what did we have? We had zero temperatures. And, did we ever expect to have something of that nature? I would have never dreamed that it would be like that. And then, so that was something that was totally different for us. And so the possibility of flooding, I think it really could happen. I think and I can't say when, but I think we need to really be looking at a lot of things, and we need to have people out there. And of course, that's what this does. That helps create different departments. That helps create a lot of other things, and that brings more into the tribe because now all of a sudden, here we are, because we are a reservation. Now we have 11 counties we're going to have to look at, and we're going to have to ensure that all of our people and all those that live around us are going to be safe. And so that's the only thing I can say about that. That's it is a thought.
We've got 2 minutes left. I'm going to ask maybe 2 more questions, 1 or 2 more questions, and then cut it off. And sorry if you guys didn't make it in there. I know there's a whole bunch of questions left. We just don't have any more time. We're at about 30 minutes. So the first question I'm going to ask here is, do you believe Flying T was a good decision?
Well, just to answer that quickly, no.
All right.
There's too many. Huh?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think you got it. I think if you want to elaborate, you can. We're just running short on time, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go
I'll just say this much. Too many questions about it. There's too many questions.
All right.
So
I got you.
So go ahead.
And the next question is from T.Y. Prohl again. Do you support the Free Press Amendment and allowing Mvskoke Media having the ability to initiate Freedom of Information Act requests?
This was a question that was asked to me the other night, and I would support that fully. But what I would like to see, because one of the things I've noticed about our media area is, I think, now, Jared, you might be able to tell me now, you guys are the ones that can make the banners, make the cards, and do all these different things, right?
That's part of Mvskoke Media. That is separate from the news division, but yes, that the creative side is the ones that do the printing and all of that.
Right. And see, I think for myself, because you guys know as well as I do, that's just like living at home with your parents. Well, then, your parents still have certain rules. And, and so if you want to actually have that full, what you would consider full independency, well, then what do? You move out of the house. You pay for everything and stuff like that. And I think you guys really have that ability there to do that, because I think you guys have so much to offer, not only to the tribe here, because I've seen a lot of the work that's come out of that office, but I think there's so much to offer even to the community at large and around that. There could be a lot of money created through that other side other than the news, and so that way it could help support the budget and everything that you guys would have because eventually, realistically speaking, and this is what happened even, and I'll be honest, this is what happened with the Citizenship Office. They come and said, you guys are only semi-independent because we still have to support you with a budget. And to me, the only way to get out of that, what they considered semi, even though it isn't written that way within the Constitution, I think you guys would have to really support yourself, even on your own budget. But I agree that you guys need to have that freedom. And I don't think you'll totally be sovereign with that freedom until you come and actually provide for your own budget. Well, now, I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It does, sir. I would just pose one little question to that as an add-on just for me, because this is something that is a question that's asked a lot too. And just for clarification, right now Mvskoke Media is funded from gaming revenue, right? And that would continue over with the constitutional amendment, just as a clarification. But my question to you is, that cost of that production would get transferred out of, because right now the cost of the news is from the gaming revenue, right? That's what it's paid for. Where would you propose that cost be transferred to? The citizens or who? Because if the paper starts to cost money or something, somebody has to pay to buy the paper or whatever, and then you're transferring that cost somewhere. So what's your theory on that?
Well, when I think about this, and there may be a lot of people who disagree with me on this particular thing, but I think eventually we need to do that. Because when you look at the paper that we have now presently, now is the paper going to become bigger? Is it going to be something that has more pages to it? And so is the cost going to be even larger? Because now all of a sudden, because of the freedom you have, now you're gathering in more news, and there's things that people would want to see, and so you're having to create a bigger paper. Eventually, I think that cost would have to go back to the membership, and whatever that cost may be. But then that goes all the way back to even at the beginning when we were speaking in terms of creating industry. Mm-hmm. To help the people to begin to be able to have a good living, and everything. And so moving away from this the social service aspect of everything, and helping us become more business oriented by creating industry for our people to work. I don't think that people would have a problem with that then at that time. I don't even think they would even at this time would have too many problems with it. But it's just the fact that these are some of the changes, unfortunately, that have to come about in order for things to succeed. And sometimes change is not always accepted very well. But once we see that change begin to happen and see what's taking place and that it's a good thing, then all of a sudden, usually those particular thoughts start dying out too.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand what you're saying, absolutely. I mean, in a nutshell, you're saying if the water goes up, all the boats go up, right? That idea is like, if citizens have more money, they can pay for that. I understand that. But we're a little over here. We've got 2 or 3 minutes. There's been a lot of questions, and I apologize if we couldn't get to your question in the future. But I would tell everybody in the chat, if your question didn't get asked during this stream, this is the last of the candidate profiles. Now, for the Okmulgee District, there's probably going to be a runoff, most likely, because of the number of candidates. So we're planning on having a forum for the 2 candidates in the runoff in the general election. And so we'll probably be reaching out to you if you make it past this primary stage on coming in with both of the candidates and then a moderator, and we can touch on these issues again. So keep any questions you don't get asked here, keep them in your mind and bring them over to there. The other thing I would want to say to the audience is this year, normally when we do an election live stream on Saturday for the primary or the general, we get a link that has a live updated election results. This year, the election board they've got a different vendor or something, so they're not going to have that link for us with live results. And what we've been told that they're going to do is, when each polling district closes their polls and they've got the tally for that district done, they're going to post that district on the Mvskoke Creek Nation Election Board's Facebook page. So we're telling the audiences we're not going to do a live stream this year, and if you want to get those election results, that's the only place that those are going to be posted on the Creek Nation Election Board's Facebook page. They'll have those posted as they come in, and it'll be my understanding is just going to be one post for each district starting off when the polls close with the absentee ballots. So they'll post absentee and go on down the line as the night progresses. And then we're going to see how all of that goes, and if we can work out a way to do a live stream for the November general, we'll do it at that time. But at this point, it's just it's not the normal setup, so we're just going to kind of observe and see how things go. So, and I want to say thank you to Mr. Harjo Sr. for coming in today. We appreciate it, and really all the candidates that participated. From my perspective, it's an important forum to allow citizens that maybe can't get to a forum to ask their question to come in here and ask their question right here. We appreciate all the support and everything else. And with that being said, would you like to have any last words before we get out of here? We're a little bit over, but I always try to give the candidate the last word.
Well, I tell you, I would appreciate everybody's support on the 15th and 16th and the 18th. But most importantly, do the one thing that this process allows, and that's just for you to cast your vote for whomever it may be. Cast your vote. Thank you.
All right, Mado, and we'll see you again, guys.
You got it.